quite a long time ago, when I was fairly new to Karuna, I looked after a young woman whose daughter was at the same primary school as my daughter. And I found that very, very challenging. So there were lots of connections there, and I held back on some of those connections then because it wasn't necessarily appropriate for me to talk about my daughter with this woman. But I found her death really quite hard to deal with. I think she might have been the first person actually that I went out to. I was working a weekend when she died, and her daughter and her husband were there. And that was really challenging for me, and that was really not so much about her, that was about me thinking about what it would be like for my daughter.
I remember when I was quite a young registered nurse, I was probably about 23 or 24, and I worked on a oncology ward, and there was a youngish woman who had been on the ward for quite a long period of time. She was suffering from leukaemia, and her treatment was fairly intense, and she had probably been coming and going from that ward for about a year. And I remember coming to work one day and her room was empty, and she had died the previous night, and of course I hadn't been at work that night. And her room was empty for the morning, and then by the afternoon it was filled by a new patient, and it was quite jarring emotionally to have had this young woman with us for all this time and then for her to be gone and for her to have been replaced. And I remember going home from work that night and lying on the lounge room floor in the dark, listening to some music that she used to play in her room. And I remember thinking to myself, what is going on here? What is this about? And then after lying on the floor for a while thinking, actually, this is grief.
I think there's always clients that impact you more than others. You don't always know what the trigger is. It could be they remind you of someone, or you just don't know. It could just be their individual circumstances that kind of, there's always someone that really kind of gets to you.
Not all clients do you develop the same relationship. It's just you still treat them well, but you maybe don't get affected as badly when you lose them as clients. Others, 100% bad. It feels like you've lost your parent. That, you're no longer going there anymore. And sadness, really sadness. And then you've got to just pick yourself up and keep on going and doing the best that you can in that situation. And it's going to happen again and again and again.
I believe I have been impacted by workplace grief and loss. It tends to, when you sort of think of that question right now in this situation, it's hard to recall, but because it happens and you deal with it and you go through it, and then so much is going on, so many other clients, so many different things that continue on, and you just sort of keep going. I have a father who's very unwell, so I sort of, it brings all your own situation to the fore. Yeah. Absolutely.
I worked in a particular team a while ago, and it was a really small team. It was a new service and there wasn't really support. So it was very difficult to manage. There were only really 2 nursing staff in that team, so we were seeing the same clients every day, and we were caring for people right at the very end of their lives, so daily visits, and it was really quite difficult to manage that within the small team. It surprised me that I was impacted so much because I was an experienced palliative care and community nurse, so I'd come across a lot of complex situations, and I'd looked after people right at the very end of life. So it was a surprise to me how much I found that I missed the support from the team. It's always good to have a balance of work, home life, going out finding things to do that are meaningful for you, taking some time out.
We make sure that, we have called home care workers, called yourself, Charlene, to say, that the client has passed away, and, we go through a conversation about what that means to both of us, and there is that support.
Yeah,
definitely
there.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think there's an acknowledgement of when those particular situations are happening. You know, we have been fortunate enough to be able to go to funerals together, and that's been really good to be together and go through that, and that's been giving the opportunity for those supports and conversations to happen. You are probably one person that does, you know, let me know how you feel. Some home care workers are a bit more, they just can, you know, keep it within themselves, and that's okay as well. But, you know, it's having the opportunity to talk. Yeah.
When we go to clients' homes, there is a team of workers that are in there, different carers on different days, different times. So when we have a loss of a client, we do have those carers that we can call upon as our team and our coordinator, that we can tell them we're feeling sad and how can we deal with this feeling. And I think it's okay to show an emotion, because it's an emotional time to lose somebody.
I had to work out ways to acknowledge the sadness of someone dying, but not to the point where it paralysed me or prevented me from working in the area that I really chose to work in.
Other things that I do to help me deal with the grief that comes with this work is I exercise very regularly. I have really good social network. I'm really good at having a good work-life balance. I'm really lucky that I've chosen to work part-time so that I actually get a fair amount of downtime, so that I can switch off. If someone's working in an organisation where there aren't good processes in place, to find someone who's safe that they can talk to within that organisation about what's going on for them is really important. And even maybe finding someone professional outside of the organisation. Death and dying can be traumatic, but it can also be very intimate and very beautiful too. And I'm really lucky that I get to share that with people or walk beside people and their families through that time. And people are incredibly generous around allowing us to come into their homes and help support them. And it's really beautiful to see someone who's dying being able to nurture their family through that too.